Welcome. My name is Jill Tejan. I'm Vice President of the Board of Directors of the National Women's Hall of Fame. And induction, every time it's held, is such a wonderful and inspiring and motivational event. So I'm delighted to be here in Seneca Falls, New York, the birthplace of women's rights and the home of the National Women's Hall of Fame.
Good morning. Just fine. I'm Kate Stevenson from the Maryland Women's Heritage Center and from Top of the Morning from Baltimore.
Wonderful.
We are so thrilled and we want to congratulate you for this award and tell us how you were feeling with your grandchildren and children seeing what you've accomplished.
Well, I'm thrilled about that because it's really important for them to know of the courage of the women at Seneca Falls. It's the birthplace of women's rights, and I think they would take great pride in learning more about it. I am myself personally thrilled to be getting this award. I thank Beth and Beverly, co-presidents of the Hall of Fame, for this wonderful honor, and I'm pleased to be joining so many wonderful other inductees today. That's really making it even more thrilling. But as far as Maryland is concerned, that's where I was born and raised, and one of our colleagues from Maryland will be here, Congresswoman Donna Edwards. She'll be coming up when Congress has adjourned and they're on their way. We thought there might be more activity, but
we want to invite you to the Maryland Women's Heritage Center when you get back to Maryland.
Thank you for the invitation. Anytime. I'd love to do that. That's easy from D.C. Thank you.
Well, much love from Maryland and Baltimore.
Thank you. Appreciate
Well,
you
we're
being
so glad you're all here this morning, and so we thank you for coming, and we're delighted to have the leader as one of our inductees this year. So
Go, Beverly. Hi, Jill and Linda. We're sorry you couldn't be here. We're thinking of you.
Last but certainly not least, our ninth inductee is Nancy Pelosi. Nancy D'Alessandro was born in Baltimore, Maryland, with a strong family tradition of public service. Her late father, Thomas D'Alessandro Jr., served as mayor of Baltimore for 12 years, after representing the city for 5 terms in Congress. Her brother, Thomas D'Alessandro III, also served as mayor of Baltimore. In 1962, she graduated from Trinity College in Washington, D.C. 1 year later, she married Paul Pelosi, a native of San Francisco, where they settled with their 5 children. As she raised her children, she worked as a volunteer for the Democratic Party and served on the San Francisco Library Commission. In 1987, she won a special election to represent the city of San Francisco in the House of Representatives. 14 years later, in 2001, her colleagues elected her House Democratic Whip and then House Democratic Leader in 2002, making her the first woman to hold both positions, finally breaking the marvelous record. Nancy Pelosi was elected by her colleagues to serve as the first woman Speaker of the House from 2007 to 2011. During her many years of service, she has worked tirelessly to increase the number of women in public service. And through her leadership, she has paved the way for many more women to enter politics. As Speaker, Pelosi's legislative accomplishments included the passage of the landmark Affordable Care Act. The Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. Lilly, would you stand? She's an inductee of the Hall of Fame. And strong Wall Street reforms, and historic investments in clean energy and innovation. During her many years of service, she has worked tirelessly to increase the number of women in public service, and through her leadership, she has paved the way for many more women to enter politics. For your pioneering service as the first woman Speaker of the United States House of Representatives and the first woman in American history to lead a major political party in Congress, Nancy Pelosi, you are inducted into the National
Thank you very much for that generous testimonial. Thank you, Beverly. Thank you, Beth, for your leadership. I want to thank Ellen Middleberger for nominating me for this wonderful honor. And I accept it with love and gratitude to my family, to my husband, Paul Pelosi, my husband of 50 years this September. Here, Nancy Corinne with her daughter Madeline, Nancy Corinne, and my daughter Christine, who is here with her daughter Bella. There are 2 granddaughters. We have 7 grandsons, and they, with my daughter Jacqueline, my daughter Alexandra, and our son Paul, send their best wishes and look forward to visiting Seneca Falls when we can spend a much longer period of time. I accept the honor of receiving it with so many distinguished awardees today. To be in this company enhances this honor enormously for me. I'm so blessed. Thank you for leading. Every one of them, and the persons for whom they speak, the top of their field. And of course, I accept it in recognition that none of the things that you mentioned would have happened without my colleagues, many of whom are here today. What an honor it is to be here on this occasion, but what a treat it is to be in Seneca Falls and to have been in Rochester yesterday. I really have sort of an attraction to this area for reasons other than Seneca Falls as well as Seneca Falls. And that's because our colleague Louis Slaughter, who represents this area in Congress, Louis Slaughter, all the time about the work ethic, the entrepreneurial spirit, the creativity in the arts, and you name it, it's here. And she just cannot say enough about it. However, I also am pleased to be here because when we saw earlier today the film and the pictures of the mill and where the new museum was going to be, it was right there on the Erie Canal. And Erie Canal was one of the first infrastructure projects, grand infrastructure projects in our country. Thomas Jefferson said, as he was building and buying new territory for our country, we have to have mobility. So this is an historic place in so many ways, has led the way. Here today, we're celebrating how this area led the way for the rights of women. 15 years ago, Louise invited us here. Many of the women members came to celebrate and observe the 150th anniversary of the Seneca Falls Declaration. And Rochester, to see the homelessness and the anthem, but to see it all here in the park. It was a transforming experience for all who came, because you could see firsthand and learn more about the courage that it took for these women to do what they did now 165 years ago. And what they said at the time, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women are created equal. And went on to say, such is now the necessity for women to demand the equal station to which they are entitled. So in the next few minutes, I will answer some of the questions that I have been asked by the press and by some of you as to what today means to me, to all of us. When I became a leader in the Congress, my colleagues have heard me tell this story over and over, but when I became a leader was after we had been to Seneca Falls a few years later. I went to my first meeting at the White House as the Democratic leader of the House of Representatives. And I wasn't having any apprehension about the occasion because I'd been to the White House many times as an appropriator, as an intelligence committee person. So I didn't even think about being apprehensive. When I went to the meeting and the door closed behind me, and I saw the President, the Vice President, and the other leaders of Congress, House and Senate, Democratic and Republican, I realized that this was unlike any meeting that any woman had ever been to before in the White House. Not only me, but any woman. But I was there, was not my presence there to ride from the President's appointment but as a representative of my caucus. And as I sat down, and President George W. Bush, ever gracious and welcoming, while he was speaking, at my chair, I felt very, very closed in. Very, very closed in. I didn't know what was happening, and I could vaguely pay attention to what he was saying. And then I realized that sitting on my chair with me was Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucretia Ma, Alice Paul, Sojourner Truth, you name it. They were right there. It was very, very tight. I can't imagine what the president must have been thinking at the time as I was squeezing in to make room for them and others. And then I could hear him say, "At last, we have a seat at the table." At last, we have a seat. And then they were gone. Then they were gone. And my first thought was, we want more. We want more. And so how did I get from the kitchen to the Congress to that seat at the table? And what role models did I have on that path? Well, my first and foremost, my role model was my mother. She was a wonderful woman. She had 7 children. She as my father were very civically involved and always taught us that, true to our Catholic faith, we had a responsibility one to another to look after people. And the best way I can explain her to you is to read a little piece of a prayer that she wrote about her mother and about what moms mean to the world and what our responsibilities are and how grateful we are to have a good mother. And it goes like this. Mother, I think of you, guardian angel of my childhood. Who can fathom the real meaning of the word mother? Whose hearts are not filled with the memory of her who has not stopped loving us from the first moment of our existence, when like a ray of sunshine that beamed down into our cradle, when the fingers of care and worry had not yet touched our hearts. It was Mother who was always around, preventing their entrance into the holy island of childhood. Goes on and on, then it says, even when the word mother is spoken by an old man, it sounds like it comes from the lips of a child. Goes on, and then at the end it says, in a few words, Mother is God's co-helper and a radiant beam from the Mother of Mercy. That's part of what her prayer was. And of course, she wrote that in honor of her own mother, but it was a message to us as to how I could be a mother. I was 6 boys, 1 girl, so it was really a message from her to me. And she was my role model. My brother, Tommy, who's 11 years older than I, he used to say that during the Depression, if somebody would knock on the door, we don't even know if they wanted a job, if they needed a housing project, if they needed whatever they needed, but 9 chances out of 10, they would end up at the dining room table because they needed food, and there was never any thought that anyone would be turned away. That was, again, our Catholic faith. That was our manifestation of it was in civic and community action. The way I got from getting married, having 5 children in 6 years, 50 years ago, and so involved in that and trying to remember my mother's words about what a mother should be, I, as was mentioned, had some involvement as a volunteer and as a Democrat, because when our family, we were very proud of our Italian-American heritage, very proud of our heritage, very patriotically American, very devoutly Catholic, and very staunchly Democratic. And so that I had time for in my volunteer activities. And one day, the woman who was a member of Congress came to me and said, I'm not going to run for re-election, you must run. And I mean, imagine a woman handing off to a woman. This is highly unusual. There simply just weren't that many women around. Sala Burton was her name, and I want you to hear the story about 16-year-olds and their moms. For her, because I loved her, I contemplated. I never intended to run for office. Never did. Never. I was a behind-the-scenes person wanting to promote others. And then she was insisting that she would feel better if I would run for her seat. And so other people suggested that might be a good idea. So 4 of our children were already in college. So I went to our daughter Alexandra, who at that time was about 16 and a half. And I said, Alexandra, Mommy has this opportunity to run for Congress. I love my life. You know, if one more year, because she was young for her class, one more year you would be in college. So if you don't want me to run, I'm happy not to run, and I'm happy to be home with you. And I said I might not even win. I'm just talking about running for Congress. To which she said, Mother, get a life. Mother, get a life. I had never heard that expression before. This was 26 years ago. And so I had a life, but I got more a congressional life when I went on to win. And here we are 26 years later. But what I'm really here to tell you about is where we go from here. What was your legacy getting this award? Where do you go from here? And I want to again salute my female colleagues in the House of Representatives, because we have decided, after observing the scene for a while, that incrementalism is not working for us. It's nice to keep adding, but we want more. And so we have to make our own environment. We keep making the battle in the context of an atmosphere that was not set up for the success of women. It was about just trying to beat your way into the door. And we think, I believe, there are 2 ways for us to change the environment, relate to policy, and it relates to politics. On July this year, on the 165th anniversary of the Seneca Falls Declaration, the women members of the House, with a few good men, stood with us there, and we saluted what happened in the words that we use of all men and women are created equal, and we decided and had worked together to form what would make the biggest difference. And our initiative was entitled, When Women Succeed, America Succeeds. And springing from the Seneca Falls Convention, we said there are 3 things that we could do that would change the respect for women in the workplace. What would they be? And they would be the following. First of all, under the leadership of Rosa DeLauro, who is this is her brainchild, but working with all of the other members, working with Donna Edwards of Maryland and Doris Matsu, chair and vice chair of our Women's Caucus, they put together and studied and listened to people all over the country these 3 things. 1, equal pay for equal work. Equal pay. Doesn't, but long overdue. And Rosa has the bill, the Paycheck Fairness Act. We were very proud. Rosa's bill was the Lilly Ledbetter bill, named for Lilly. And Lilly, we could not be more honored. You are an icon. You are a heroine. We are so delighted that you are here today. Legislation was very important, but we still have to have pay equity. And one of the elements of it, of course, is also to raise the minimum wage. 62% of the people who make minimum wage are women, and we have to have better respect for them. Secondly, we have had, many of us were part of passing the family medical leave, which was very important. But for many, it is not paid. So we want paid leave. And third, and this is really connected to our suffragettes,
They worked so hard. They worked so hard to get women to have the right to vote. In fact, when women got the right to vote, finally, decades later, the newspapers reported women given the right to vote. Now, that wasn't what happened. When it fought, when it marched, when it sacrificed, women demanded, and then women got the right to vote, but nobody gave it to women. And it was a tremendous victory for America, not just for women, but for America. And then decades later, we had women in the workforce, World War II, Rosie the Riveter, and so that was new. All these women leaving home to go to work. That was good. And then we had the higher education of women in the professions are choosing to stay home or have whatever job they wanted, and perhaps at the professional level. But the missing link in all of that was affordable, quality child care. Affordable, quality care. So our observance of the 165th anniversary of the Seneca Falls Convention is this initiative, When Women Succeed, America Succeeds, and taking us all to the next step. To have the legislation to do this, we need the outside mobilization to make it happen. So that's on the policy side. If we have women free to follow their passion and their profession or stay home, whatever it is, but they have those options. And it's good for men too. It's good for families. On the political side, again, if we're going to make change, instead of electing 10 more women, whatever it is, and we're very proud of the way our numbers have increased, we must change the environment. And I promise you this, if you reduce the role of money in politics and increase the level of civility in politics, you will have many more women. And that is something that will be very wholesome for our country. If you do both, you'll be able to see our country benefit from women in our national security, women in our economic security, women in the academic world, the athletic world, you name it, every place. This will be the most wholesome and successful thing we can do for American competitiveness. And so we have instituted a DARE on this reducing the role of money, disclose where does money come from, amend the Constitution to overturn Citizens United, reform our system, of small donors in the system and be empowered, remove obstacles of participation to voting for the American people. If we are fighting for that DARE, and across the country people know that it has to be done, and when it is done, more women, more minorities, more young people will have more opportunity to serve our country in public office. And by the way, I'm very proud that these women here today are part of the House Democratic Caucus is over 50% women, minorities, and LGBT community members. So again, people ask me, why do you do this? How do you have so much energy to do this all the time? And the only reason I ever ran for public office in the first place was because being a mom and seeing all the love and attention and opportunity that my children, our relatives, all the rest of the children around us had, and realizing that 1 in 5 children in America lives in poverty, it was a completely intolerable and has been a completely intolerable idea to me. Not to mention children throughout the world by incident of birth who have so many needs that are not being attended to. So that's why when I accepted the gavel to be Speaker of the House when I did, I invited the children to come up because I wanted to accept the gavel on behalf of all of America's children and beyond. And so, in accepting this wonderful award, I want my colleagues to come up so I can accept it with all of them. Come on up, everybody wants to see. First, New Yorkers, Rita Lowy, Slaughter, of course. they will be again. And from California, there are 9 of us. Can you imagine that there are 9 of us from California? We have Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, a champion on breast cancer. The Affordable Care Act. Susie Davis, a champion for women in the military. Lars Matsui, and Jan Schakowsky, the co-chairs of meeting the needs of older women in Medicare and Social Security. Jan Schakowsky and Susie, Jan Schakowsky from Illinois. Jackie Spear, our champion against fighting sexual abuse in the military. Barbara Bain, champion of issues that relate to women and the poor. Janice Hahn, a champion for women's rights and choose. That was just in California. And now, as I mentioned, Rosa DeLauro, she's the godmother of all of us. Donna Evans of Maryland. Edmund Cullen of Minnesota. Betty. Wayne Moore, where's Wayne Moore? She's coming. The author of the Violence Against Women Act. I hasten to add that when we first had the Violence Against Women Act in the 90s, Louise Slaughter, she was the first and foremost author. Of New Hampshire, and Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas. All of them champions in the Congress of the United States, all of them fighters for the Affordable Care Act, where no longer being a woman is a pre-existing medical condition. It's not just about women for women, it's about women being respected as well as men being respected. It's about diversity of opinion. It's about changing the environment. So these women are there to make it happen. We want their numbers to grow and increase. I wanted them to be here to honor the Women's Hall of Fame by saying to you, what you are doing is important by recognizing women and by paying our respects to the other honorees as well. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed the show. The next induction ceremony will be in 2015, but in the meantime, there are ways for you to become involved. You can become a member of the National Women's Hall of Fame, and you can support the fundraising campaign for the Mill Rehabilitation Project. See you in 2015.